Projection.
It's Friday morning. You know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And we are in a fucking car driving down the road, up the road. We are leaving Pensacola on a work trip, heading back to Huntsville sometime mid-morning Thursday. Been down here working the last few days. Didn't get to see Dynamite Tuesday night and do what our original plan was to make our buddy and coworker watch a full wrestling show for the first time and give us his thoughts on it, but we didn't get back to the hotel till about 8:30 that night, and it was in the middle of the Jericho and Dalton Castle match, and so we were like, hey, run down here and watch this last match. It's going to be a banger, and then we'll get to that a little while later.
Yeah,
but
something happened.
Yeah, something happened. So we didn't get to do what we originally wanted to do with that, but we might sneak him here for a comment or two later. But let's start off. So we apologize if you hear a lot of extraneous noise. Like I said, we're in a moving vehicle on the highway heading home. But let's talk about some WWE news first for the week. The main things we'll go over some of the honorary Uce, Sami Zayn stuff, and a little bit of Bray Wyatt. But Patrick, go ahead and give us your thoughts on what's happening there.
So yeah, I don't know if there's anything from Monday Night Raw we're going to talk about. So going back to SmackDown from last week, Sami Zayn had a great match with Kofi Kingston. So that Sami Zayn honorary Uce Bloodline story continues. The reason I want to talk about it though is because I got on Squared Circle this past week. And someone posed the question, like, should Sami Zayn be the one to defeat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania and finally dethrone him from this 2-year reign that he's had as WWE champion? And I was absolutely surprised and downright shocked at the amount of people that were like, oh, no, Sami shouldn't be the WWE champion. And I guess I would just ask, why? Like, what is the issue? Like, to me, like, if you were to go back, let's say from October, September of the year right before Daniel Bryan won at WrestleMania 30, how many of those people would have said that Daniel Bryan should be the WWE champion? You know, like, wrestling is fiction, and you can you can do whatever you want. So you can make Sami more of a threat to Roman Reigns, but I mean, that's the story that should be told, right? I don't know. Obviously it might have been Cody Rhodes, but Cody Rhodes got hurt, and so things change. And this Sami Zayn honorary Uce Bloodline story has become the main story.
This could be the Kofi Kingston gets his shot from like a few years ago when he got his shot because Mustafa Ali got injured.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people in that Reddit thread were like, oh, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens should team up to dethrone the Usos. But, I mean, just from a narrative standpoint, Sami Zayn and Jey Uso already don't like each other, right?
Yeah.
So then it's not fulfilling or rewarding in any kind of sense to just have them fight each other. What's rewarding is to have the relationship come full circle and they join up to help take down a Roman Reigns, right? Because obviously we talked about before, this whole thing, Bloodline, started with Jey Uso and Roman Reigns fighting each other. So why would it not come full circle and have it end that way? And you have Sami Zayn, with the help of Jey Uso, beats Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and Sami Zayn becomes a WWE champion.
Look, that's what I'm looking for as somebody who kind of went away from WWE for a while, and I'm wading in the waters a little bit now, getting back in just a little bit on Friday nights, but nothing would be more fucking boring to me than to see somebody like a fucking Lesnar or Bobby Lashley win over Reigns. I don't want to see that shit. If I want to see anything, I want to see the underdog. I want to see Sami Zayn get in there and fucking turn on Roman and beat his ass.
I mean, that is the most compelling thing that they have going right now.
Give me the underdog story.
Right, and you can get, people are already behind Sami Zayn, and like this idea that like Sami Zayn's not a WWE champion. Well, if you have that opinion, I would just say, what do you think makes a WWE champion? A WWE champion should just be whoever on the roster has the most emotional connection with the crowd, is involved in the biggest story, and you can't turn on Friday Night SmackDown and have Sami Zayn be in the ring and try to tell me that he's not over with the crowd. He is the most over thing on that program, to the point where all the Bloodline guys are standing in the ring and the crowd's chanting Sami Zayn's name. So, like, I mean, if that's not a WWE champion, I don't know what your idea of a champion is supposed to be. And like we've talked about before, the problem with the previous regime is that you would have stories like this go taking off, and then they would just get the knees cut out from underneath them by a Brock Lesnar or a Goldberg or something like that. So if this really is a full wholesale change that WWE has gone under with now Triple H at the helm, then it's got to be different, right? It can't just be a different coat of paint on it, so to speak. Like it needs to be different in the way that the storylines and the characters that the fans really invest in, we're going to pay those things off and really treat our audience, to these things that previously we might have just kind of dangled out there and not gone all the way with it. So
yeah. I think that's honestly the way it's got to be. Anything less than that will be a fucking letdown for me.
To me, yeah, but I'm just like I said. The reason I want to talk about it is because I was kind of just shocked at how many people just flat out said no, like he should go after the tag team titles with Kevin Owens.
Well, tell them what you think about that, right? That segment we talked about we might do in the past, like you're just wrong.
Well, I mean, it's like Sammy versus Jay. It's if they fight each other, they're already not cool with each other, so
right.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. Yeah. There's no emotional payoff there, as opposed to the payoff being, they join forces, or Jay helps Sammy in one moment, and the big bad beast that is Roman Reigns finally gets toppled.
Right. Well, let's move to Bray Wyatt. His promo from Friday night. Everybody was wondering what would happen in his first time on the microphone since coming back. Had a cool entrance, had some cool music. They WWE obviously does not listen to our podcast every week, because if they did, he would have walked out to that low ass baritone. He's got the whole world in his hands that they did at.
His music was so cool, though.
Yeah, his music was pretty fucking cool.
Maybe they made the right decision.
Ain't gonna lie, I ain't mad at it, but the squandered opportunity there, WWE. Tighten up. And follow what we're throwing at you. We got some good ideas. But so he comes out and he does his promo, and it's fucking great. And part of me was wondering, like, is this for real? And then, the more story aspect comes into it, like, because he's like, hey, this is just me. This is me speaking from the heart. And he got real emotional and talked about how he was real down for a while, and, like the fans saved his life, and et cetera, et cetera. And I thought it was fucking great. And then the mask jumps in on the screen and it ends. And there's been a lot of theories. There's theories about some of the characters that could make up the Wyatt Six that he trademarked several months ago. And then there's other people saying that the Wyatt Six is going to be the 6 personalities of Wyndham Rotunda. So, there's a couple different ways they could go there, and they haven't really leaned which way they're going, but I thought it was a pretty great first promo coming back. Yeah,
what's that saying? You give them just enough truth so that they believe the lie. And yeah, Bray Wyatt. People said it was they were talking about on Twitter, like, he gave a little bit of a out of character. Well, that's not out of character. That's clearly part of the story that they're trying to tell here. Well, with Bray Wyatt coming back, but this. And I think I posted it to our Twitter account. This is like evolution of professional wrestling promo that has happened here really, I would say probably like the last 10 to 15 years, but has really kind of gone to the forefront in terms of like the Bray Wyatt promo and Jon Moxley from a few months ago when he's talking about rehab, and now MJF's character and what he's doing on Dynamite, which we'll talk about. Really, these men, pro wrestling promos of the past were all about guys screaming about how tough they were and how macho they were,
how much money they had, and
or that kind of stuff. Yeah, if you ask somebody on the street to like, do a pro wrestling impersonation, they're gonna put a lot of bass in their voice and talk about how they're gonna crush their opponent and all this sort of stuff like that, which was what was happening in the 80s and 90s with these promos. I mean, there were some guys in the 80s like a Jake the Snake and a Roddy Piper that were doing sort of different things. And then obviously guys like Macho Man and Ric Flair who were doing these promos that were wildly entertaining with these outlandish catchphrases and stuff. But this evolution of these characters showing their vulnerable side and, like, you know, actually crying on camera is something that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And it's a cool nuance that allows for different avenues of storytelling to take place that, you know, traditionally pro wrestling hasn't had. And so Bray Wyatt up there talking about, you know, that this is just me, referencing the person that's behind the character, and then immediately having that cut go up against this character, whoever it is, in a mask, is a hell of a way to tell a pro wrestling story. And it also we'll draw a parallel between it when we start talking about MJF, but, like, it's letting reality bleed into pro wrestling, right? And we've talked about it before on this podcast. That's when wrestling gets really interesting, when the line between reality and fiction really starts to fade, and you can't tell, is this the person behind the character, is this the character? And that's that kind of space that only pro wrestling can do, and that pro wrestling can really thrive in. So I thought this promo was fantastic. You know, like a lot of things in WWE, we'll see how this plays out, because there's been a lot of start and stop moments with certain stories in WWE in the past. But they have a hell of a thing going right now with him. And, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm going to assume at some point down the line he's got to actually have some action in the ring, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We don't really have any indication on when his first match will be or who it will be against.
Because right now he's feuding with himself.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I assume they'll give us a couple weeks of sort of setup with this, and we'll probably get some sort of idea of what Wyatt 6 will be or what's going to be happening. I assume we'll get a little more tease on Friday evening with SmackDown.
Yeah. Also, Rey Mysterio joined SmackDown.
Yeah.
That was a cool. I like that, because so many times guys just jump between shows and they give no reason as to why.
Yeah.
And so the little vignette in the back with Rey Mysterio being like, I can't fight my son, like, I want to quit. And Triple H, you know, they motioned into the office, and then later on in the night, you know, Karrion Kross couldn't compete in the four-way because he was involved in that accident as soon as SmackDown opened, which I'm not totally sure if they ever explained who did it. I don't know if Drew McIntyre did it or if Karrion Kross was just involved in an accident and Drew McIntyre was like, oh, I'm going to whoop his ass now because he's out here and he's, you know, he's not protected or whatever. But, yeah, cool little thing with Rey Mysterio, too, so that was good to see. Back on SmackDown, where he really made his name in WWE.
Yeah, they traded for Happy Corbin.
Yeah, and then Happy Corbin gets JBL, which now he's Baron Corbin, so we can't call him Happy Corbin anymore. But I like Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin's a great wrestler. His character work has been great, too, with the Happy stuff. Now, it kind of got stale. But I like the pairing of him and JBL together, so we'll see what they do with that.
Yeah.
It's JBL, man. You want to talk about old school heel? I mean, that people hate that motherfucker. So him coming out and running down the state of Oklahoma, talking about Texas. You know, this could be an entertaining pair, managerial wrestler relationship going forward.
Yeah. So do you have anything else you want to talk about WWE-wise, or do you want to jump into Dynamite?
Yeah, we'll jump into Dynamite. I don't think there's anything else WWE. Survivor Series and Crown, you know, the Logan Paul stuff still out there, and I mean, it's whatever. It's fine. He's not going to beat Roman for anything, so it won't matter.
It'll probably be a fun match.
Yeah, and after Crown Jewel, we'll probably start really nailing down the card for Survivor Series. We got some War Games matches that are coming up. There's speculation all over the place as who's going to be involved in War Games. So WWE's been hitting a stride the past couple months, and you know they're good shows. You know, we talk about all the time the differences in the styles between the wrestling styles. So a lot of Raw and SmackDown, I kind of just fast forward a lot of the matches. But in terms of some of the character work and stories they have going on, they got some good stuff going on.
All right, Oos, let's talk about AEW then. This was a weird week because, like I said, we mentioned we were working all day Tuesday in Florida and didn't get back to the hotel until about 8:30. So by the time we flipped on the TV, we're probably in the middle of the Jericho and Dalton match. So, I mean, let's just start there, and we'll jump all around out of order probably. I don't know what order things were in because I went back and watched a lot of the matches on YouTube, and I know Patrick did separately as well. So this is my introduction to Dalton Castle, other than his quick promo the week before. But dude put on a really good show with Jericho from what I saw that night, and it seems like all indications of some couple of things that were hinted at and came out this week that we're even closer to a weekly Ring of Honor deal. So obviously I feel like that's why they've been playing up Ring of Honor so much lately and bringing in people that I haven't known before that are coming in and putting on great shows. But this guy, he's a dude. Obviously a lot of y'all know way more about Ring of Honor than I do, but felt like it was an entertaining match for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. When Mance Warner came on AEW and had that one-off, we said, we didn't know what his contract looked like, but we were like, if you give this dude consistent TV time, in about 2 months, he's going to get himself really over with a crowd. Obviously, that hasn't been the case with Mance Warner. He hasn't been back. Dalton Castle seems like somebody they might have a little bit more stock in. This is now his 3rd or 4th appearance on AEW. I'm telling you, you put this dude on TV consistently for a couple months, he's going to have a lot of people on his side. He's going to sell a lot of merchandise. That character with the party peacock and the boys and the sexual nature of the gimmick, it's all just over the top in the best way possible. But he can back it up in the ring, right? And he's a big fucking dude.
Yeah, he's lanky.
Big dude, way bigger than what Jericho was. He was showcasing some of that strength. I love the spot where he throws the boys outside the ring to take down Hager. I love the little character work they're giving Hager to with the Daniel Garcia purple hat. He's trying to make that. I
like this hat.
Get that thing over, yeah. And so yeah, this was a great back and forth match. It felt at times that the crowd was buying into some of the false finishes. And then, Jericho hits the Judas effect, which I think at this point, I don't know if anybody's kicked out of it. Maybe Moxley's kicked out of it. I think Moxley's the only one that's ever kicked out of it.
Probably, yeah.
So they've protected that move, and Jericho hits it out the blue and gets the win. But afterwards, I popped like hell in the hotel room. You didn't know who this guy was. When I saw Jerry Lynn come out, I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I was
Jerry
lost.
Lynn, for listeners that don't know Jerry Lynn, please go on Peacock and look up some ECW stuff. If you want to talk about one of the more influential wrestlers of his generation, really making his name in the mid to late 90s in ECW, he's been criminally underrated. So when he came out and took the pile driver, I was like, if I get in 2022 a Chris Jericho Jerry Lynn match, I'm going to go out of my damn mind. Because Jerry Lynn versus RVD, Jerry Lynn versus Lance Storm. There's so many matches he had in ECW that really helped define what this modern day American wrestling style is. And so any chance that we can get Jerry Lynn on television and play some of his story and some of his old school clips out there to re-educate wrestling fans about who this guy was, that's a great use of Jerry Lynn. That's a great use of Chris Jericho. Obviously, Jerry Lynn, if they do have a match, he's not going to beat Chris Jericho for the title, right? But it just helps elevate that cachet that Jericho's brought to the Ring of Honor Championship. So I'm still digging this story. All honor the Ocho. This is great stuff, I thought.
Yeah, well, let's move around. Like I said, I don't know what order things are in, but another banger for the night for me was Death Triangle versus Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. Look, all Death Triangle does is go out and put on fucking bangers. I don't know that they know how to do anything but put on a good fucking show. And that's why I said to you I think you had jumped in the shower when I watched that one. And I was like, this is the kind of shit, if we're introducing our friend and coworker into, I don't know if we can say his name. I don't know how this thing works. So we're just going to say friend and coworker.
For legal reasons, I can't say his name.
This is the kind of thing, like, we try to introduce him to Mox and Page, and that kind of went sideways. But, like, because I was like, you're going to see a fucking 5-star match. So, but, this was, they just put on a show. It's spectacle. It's fucking high flying. It's fucking 3-man moves. when you got opposite ends of things. You got people that go out there and just brutalize each other like Kingston and Moxley, versus whoever they're fighting. And then you got Death Triangle, who are just going to blow you fucking... They're going to tear it down every time.
Yeah, that's the legacy of Lucha Libre. Lucha Libre is insane and wild and wonderful and chaotic and everything like that. It requires a high level of athleticism. And really, honestly, if we're talking about in the terms of Death Triangle, those aren't three of the most athletic wrestlers in AEW. Those are three of just the best athletes in the world at any kind of sport, right? If you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Ray Phoenix's creativity and how he uses the ropes and incorporates that into his offense. You talk about Penta, the same thing with Penta, just a cool gimmick with the mask and the outfits and stuff. And then you talk about Pac. Pac can do it all, right? He's got the submissions. He's got the ground and pound. He's got the athleticism.
He could beat the shit out of you, but then he'll also do fucking 540 fucking splash, Black Arrow or whatever.
He looks like $1 million.
Yeah.
And so the dynamic that they have with, obviously Pac tried to use the hammer again. Ray Phoenix took it out of his hand. So this little dynamic that now has sprung up in Death Triangle, we'll see how they capitalize on that and where that story ends up going. But yeah, just like you said, I mean, it's just a banger of a match. That's what these guys do. These 6 men have amazing chemistry. They've probably wrestled each other tons of times before on the indies, and we know that Pac and Orange Cassidy have amazing chemistry.
Yeah, and I feel like Trent's somebody who you could put a belt on at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point down the line, give him a TNT run or, something. I feel like maybe they could end up with the trios titles at some point.
Trent has always been a guy who has kind of just been right there, but something's missing, right? I think we talked about on a couple podcasts ago. Like, there are a lot of guys like that are just, they got a great look. They're great in the ring. They're good on the mic, but just there's a little element that's missing, if you want to call it an it factor or whatever. But I mean, he was in NXT at the same time Seth Rollins was, right? And so people forget that, and he's always just kind of been right there, but for whatever reason he hasn't gotten himself over to the point to where you could look at him as a champion in any kind of sense. Obviously injuries have a lot to do with that. They've derailed his career at kind of pivotal times. So it's unfortunate in that kind of sense, but I mean, if they find something for him, you can. The look of being a champion is sometimes is the hardest part about it, and so he's got that down. He just needs something else. One thing too, I love Orange Cassidy putting the belt in the backpack and walking it to the ring with his backpack on. Genius stuff. I mean, he's so unique. One of one. He's the only, people have said this disparagingly, but he is the mascot of AEW. Like when you look at AEW, like if you were to explain the biggest difference between like AEW and WWE outside of like the in-ring action, you just point to Orange Cassidy and it's like, oh, AEW just does stuff like this. Yeah. You know what I mean? So great stuff all around.
Yeah. I love it. So let's go ahead and go to the MJF William Regal promos, plural, I guess. And I told this to you last night, I think. If this plays out the way I think it'll play out, based on the promo from Wednesday, Tuesday rather, I feel like between that and the story that he and CM Punk had earlier this year, like, he's going to be involved in 2 of the best fucking stories from this year. And he is, I sent the clip to my son and I was like, you got to fucking watch this. This is like master storytelling happening right here between these 2 guys.
It is. He pulled you in. He told you a story. He didn't stumble. He didn't sound fake. So many times with wrestlers, you see the performative aspect of it start to show, right? Guys trying to get catchphrases over, or they're playing a part. There's none of that with him. It feels real. And I'll double down on this comment again. I've made it before. When it's all said and done, this dude's going to be one of the top 5 greatest wrestlers that ever lived. I'm saying it now.
Yeah.
The way we talk about Stone Cold and The Rock and Ric Flair, we're going to talk about this guy. It's going to happen.
Yeah, and he got emotional, and you could see him breaking down a little bit, like we were talking about with something you wouldn't have seen 20 years ago with guys, like he got emotional during the Punk story. He cried in the middle of the fucking ring.
Yeah.
And he almost got there Tuesday night. And, when he was telling the story about how he had to try out with Regal, and Regal called him in his office and was like, "You got 3 minutes to sell yourself to me. Go." And then he said, "I want you to leave here, and every month I want you to send me a promo and a match." And then it sounded like he was setting it up to be like he was getting automated replies, basically, right? Or a reply from an assistant or something, because it was the same wording the first 2 months he got the replies. And then the third month he was like, "Hey, I'm fucking busy. Don't send me anything anymore," right?
All right.
And I forgot what the last line was, but, it was like, "You're wasting my time," or some shit like that. And then, that's the one that MJF hung on to for so long. And he said he read it every day, and he wanted to kill himself at one point. And, and he's gone, and he's built himself up. And here he is 7 years later. He's 26 years old, and he's a fucking man. And he's one of the best in the world. And, he's just yelling and screaming at this point. And he's not like on the verge of tears anymore. And he's like, "I'm a fucking generational talent," and I mean, just reeling you in, like you said. And then Regal turns and was like, "Hey, yeah, that's cool that you did that when you're 19, but I was fucking 16 fighting grown-ass men. And, I had to fight my way up and this, that, and the other." He's like, "You fucking had it easy, sunshine."
Yeah, what made the promo great and what made this segment great is the response from Regal.
Yeah.
Because it very easily, like in the hands of a lesser performer than Regal, it falls flat, right? MJF just bodies whoever on the microphone, and then the person tries to respond and they just fall flat on their face. But like Regal turned it around, and his delivery and talking about, like, if that line, like, if an email is all it took to get you here, then you had it easy, sunshine.
Yeah.
And then the little nuance of him turning his back, right? If you are the devil, like, here it is, take your shot. And MJF can't bring himself to do it.
Yeah, he pulls out the ring, and he
pulls out the ring. Yeah, and Regal is the first one to leave, leaving MJF there. And then, fast forwarding to the end, we'll talk about what happened, but MJF comes out to, looks like he's cashing the chip, and then finally he rolls out the ring, and we get him on the microphone saying he's going to cash it in at Full Gear. So now we have our Full Gear main event. And then MJF saying, the first time in my miserable life, I'm going to earn it. Like, those are babyface promos.
Yeah, man.
And we've talked about it. There were rumors coming out this week that, like, MJF he wants to stay heel. He doesn't want to turn babyface. My guy, like, that ain't, like, you're going to be a babyface. I'm sorry. Like, he's too good.
Yeah.
That's what the crowd is responding to. The crowd is responding in appreciation because...
You wouldn't have said, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to earn this one," if you weren't.
Yeah, and I mean, even if they try, to pull the rug out from underneath us and have him do something dastardly to beat Mox and go back on his word, I still don't know if the fans are going to boo him, honestly. Because, like I said, he's so good at professional wrestling, that's the thing they're responding to.
Yeah.
They're showing their appreciation by clapping and cheering because they're like, fuck, this man he's just good. He's too good. He's too good to be a bad guy.
I saw another guy this morning on Twitter and was like, "Yeah, MJF isn't playing a character. MJF is fucking MJF," and he's leaned into it for so long, that people will kind of forget that. Like, he doesn't break character, like on Twitter, and when he does, it's for a half second, and then he follows it back up with something different. Like the other night when when Hangman got hurt, he was like, "Prayers for Hangman," and then a few hours later, he's like, "Oh, it turns out he's fine. Now I feel like a poor."
Yeah, he's great. Like, it's witty. He's funny. He has this ability to draw you in as a storyteller, and like this idea of him being a generational talent, it's not a gimmick. It's not a lie. Like he is. And like we said, I don't care if it's $8 million, if it's $10 million, if it's 15.
Sign the check.
You can't let him walk. This is 25-year-old Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And you got to keep them around. Like, it's that good.
So did you see any of the Toni Storm match? I didn't get a chance.
Yeah,
to
Toni
watch
Storm and Sheeta both great. Great chemistry between the two. The women's division has slowly picked up steam here, and I feel like enough fans aren't talking about it because we complained about this division for so long, and now we have a lot of cool stuff interesting that's happening. Right? We got Britt Baker and Saraya.
Yeah.
What is it?
Saraya.
Fuck, that's a complicated ass name, and we don't know what it is. Saraya. Even Taz was like Saraya.
Yeah, because she said Saraya, and they had to go back and fucking
whatever.
fix it.
They got their story going on, right? Then you have this Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker thing that's happening again. Now we have Riho is back. She came back to a big pop, by the way. So there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, she's got
happening.
a match Friday night.
Yeah, against Jamie Hayter. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening, and it's kind of picking up steam. And so we'll see how this plays out when Thunder Rosa comes back. You kind of hope that Rosa, isn't like this anchor that just pulls all the steam out of the division, which she could be. We've talked about it before. Her, she's good in the ring, but everything else about her is kind of subpar at best, right? So, but Toni Storm feels more like a champion. This is the kind of stuff she needs, where she gets in a one-on-one match and she beats a lot of capable wrestlers, and that's how you make her feel like a champion.
So since I didn't see it, like, what happened at the end? I'm sure, obviously, she beat Sheeta.
So Jamie Hayter and Rebel jumped her from behind, and then Britt came out with a Steelers jersey in Cincinnati, so she got booed. Then Saraya came out. Saraya and Britt brawled to the back, and then Riho came out to make the save and did a crossbody from the top to the outside on Jamie Hayter, and so you had a nice little Sheeta, Toni Storm, Riho reunion there.
Yeah, her crossbody's fucking great. It was in the intro, and the show opened for a long ass time. I mean, in the little promos like right before the show starts, it's fucking amazing. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, that should be a banger Friday night with her and Hayter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I don't have to go into detail about how I feel about Jamie Hayter. So,
Patrick is very much team Hayter, player Hayter.
Yeah, Hayter's gonna hate. They had the quick little backstage promo where Jamie Hayter got a little bit of mic time, which she usually hasn't done during a Britt Baker promo. So, are they testing the waters here to see how she handles having a microphone, because that's a big part of wrestling too. And she vowed that either her or Britt Baker were going to have gold by the end of this year. So we're in October.
Yeah.
We're getting close.
Tick-tock.
Oh, we also had the Nyla Rose and Jade Cargill stuff going in the women's division we hadn't talked about.
Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah. Well, did they do anything on the show? Or?
Yeah, Jade said she's going to hold up the show Friday night.
Oh, that's right.
Until she gets her belt back.
So that should be interesting.
Yeah, Nyla Rose, great Twitter follower if you don't follow her. She's been on top of her game lately.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mentioned last week, I'm usually not a fan of hey, we ran down and stole this belt, so therefore it's mine. I'm like, no, that ain't how that shit works, but she's doing a good job. It's funny as shit.
Yeah.
I think when you make it fucking funny, then I'm down.
Yeah, and she's doing a hell of a job with it.
Yeah. So, was there anything else that I missed, or should we get into the Mox and Hangman match?
Now let's get into the Mox stuff.
Yeah, so I was fucking fired up. Ready for a match, and we were going to show our buddy this match, and we're like, you're in for a fucking treat. And when you get about 10 minutes in and something happens, and I was like, wait a minute, and I look at Patrick and I was like, I don't think this is right. I said, what do you think? And I was like, because I know Patrick's going to know more just by looking at things. And he's like, no, my man's is hurt. He's laying there and something's not right. And then they cut back to it, and there's medical staff in the ring. I was like, oh yeah, no, this is fucked up. This ain't a the ref is trying to figure out what's happening. I was like, he's down. And so they ring the bell, and you could tell Mox was a little shook. And Mox grabs the mic, and he's like, hey, I hope he's okay, but I still got some asses. He went from, he did the little, hey, I hope he's all right, because Mox is a good fucking dude. And then, had to finish with a show, right?
Yeah.
And then they go to like Taz and them are kind of shook, and then fucking Excalibur starts on a 5-minute promo telling what's coming up Friday and next week.
Yeah, which is just, you could tell. Here's where experience comes in, right, for everybody. So, like, you know, we didn't know what Hangman could have broke his neck, right?
Yeah.
Those are moments we've seen guys like that break their neck.
It was very clear when they didn't show anything in the ring for a few minutes that something
Right.
bad was happening.
And so I think, you know, in that moment, like, that's a real life moment that's happening there, and Taz is trying to stay in that moment. And I feel like, you know, maybe some of the inexperience of guys like Tony Khan, you know, not being in this moment like this before, is, you know, trying to just cut and get Excalibur to vamp about the matches. But I would have liked to have seen just stay in that moment on commentary and just tell Taz in his ear, like, hey, just talk about this. Like, Excalibur, y'all be shook up for a couple minutes while we try to figure everything out. Because you just got to book that stuff on the fly, right, when that shit happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there was like 13 minutes left in the show. Yeah,
and so you got to feel it. It's a live show. You got to do something. And so I would have liked to seen a little bit more Taz, like, you know, bring out that emotional aspect, at least for a little bit longer than what they did. They cut away from it too fast. But, you know, guys like Moxley, MJF, this is why they're your top stars, and this is why you pay them the big bucks, because when shit goes south, they can pick up the pieces, right? You can just give Moxley a microphone and have the ref tell him, like, hey, he's got to call out MJF, we got to do this thing. And this might have been a finish they were going to do anyway, right?
Yeah, they made it a point to show MJF in the box at one point with a chip, and then they cut back to it, and it's empty. And you're like, okay,
but
well,
you just got to,
backstage.
You know, you got to now do it for 10 minutes as opposed to maybe you were going to do it for 3.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, they pulled it off as best as they can. You know, you don't want to see anybody get hurt. Hangman got a concussion, which is not great news, but
hey, it's a lot better than being,
you know,
damn broken neck.
Yeah, a broke neck or anything like that. It looks like Moxley might have caught him just a little too high on the lariat, got him right there on the chin, and so it looks like Hangman was going to take the inside-out bump on that clothesline. You know, gets knocked loopy, he can't make it all the way through, and spikes himself on the mat, concussion. And we saw some people on the internet that were like, oh, this is what he gets for him doing his stuff with Punk, blah, blah, blah. And I would just say, if you have that take, then honestly, go fuck yourself. Like, that's such a stupid, bad faith take to have. Yeah, you're talking about somebody getting injured. You're talking about, you know, someone's actual life. We've seen guys literally get paralyzed in the ring from shit that happens. Wrestling is dangerous. And that's a simple move, right? A lariat's a simple move, but that just goes to show how dangerous this art form is, and why, you know, these are some of the best athletes in the world to be able to do this night in and night out, and have things like what happened to Hangman be kind of rare, right? I mean, we see injuries in AEW, we see injuries in WWE, but it's not as common as what you would think it would be when you have guys doing backflips all the time or getting dropped on their head and all sort of stuff like that. So, yeah, if people think that in some kind of backwards, you know, grand scheme of karma kind of way that Hangman deserved this, then, I mean, you're a piece of shit. I'm sorry.
I don't agree with that take at all. I don't know, man. I feel like you gotta have some sympathy for the dude. Like, shit just went sideways, you know, and it's unfortunate that it happened. Like, I'm not a fan of that take either. So, you know, hopefully he doesn't have too much time out, but, like, I don't want him to come back before he should. Like, they've obviously had a long wait on Adam Cole, so I don't know how bad. His must have been pretty fucking bad, because he's been out for a hot minute.
It's been a while. And shout out to Paul Turner, too, the referee.
Yeah,
for recognizing it immediately. I mean, just one of the best in the business. Recognized it, went over, and then took control of the situation, because, you know, the health and well-being and safety of the performer comes before the story, right? It comes before the show.
Yeah.
So
and Hangman is a bit, I mean, you know, he would have done it with anybody, I'm sure, but, like, Hangman is a big part of that fucking company, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Big props to him for figuring that out and handling it and getting our man to safety. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not a praying man, but positive vibes to Hangman, and hope dude recovers. He's one of my favorites. I've made that very obvious. I'm into the cowboy shit, anxious millennial cowboy.
And you can just tell how well liked he was in the locker room, or he is in the locker room, because like you said, a guy like MJF who never breaks character tweets out prayers for Hangman. You know, so like, for as much shit and speculation as people had on what that backstage of AEW looks like, I mean, Hangman has to be one of the more beloved members of that roster, just for the outpouring of support. So, you know, so hope he comes back. So
main event at the next pay-per-view is clearly now, I mean, they made it official, MJF and Moxley. It's going to be MJF's time, right? It has to be.
I think it has to be. I think if you don't do it now, when do you do it? Because you know, part of this was never the plan, right? You got your world champion got into a fucking brawl backstage, and so that's why you're in this position to begin with. Yeah. So I think now is the time to let MJF have the ball, and if there's one guy that seems hell bent on running this son of a bitch into the end zone, it's MJF.
Yeah, I think it's his time, man. And I think there'll be a big payoff to the story with him and Regal. Very, very excited to see what happens there. Just put that shit in my veins, man. Like, just directly in. I'm all for it. Their segment was 15 fucking minutes the other night, and with anybody else, I'd be like, wrap this shit up, get out of there, and let's get to some fighting. But just, I mean, I'll give me 15 minutes of that next Wednesday, and I'm good.
Now, again, we're just gonna get wild here the last half of the podcast and just speculate on stuff. Could we possibly see an MJF William Regal alliance? Because we're already seeing
I feel like that's where they're headed. I feel like that whole thing where he was like, it took an email for you to get this fucking worked up.
Yeah.
He was like, I feel like that was him saying, like, then I did my job.
We're seeing some of the dissolution of the Blackpool Combat Club, right? Because you saw that Renee Paquette backstage interview with Wheeler Yuta and Bryan Danielson, where Danielson's not wearing the Blackpool Combat Club hoodie, and Yuta is like, I bled for this, and you seem to not care about it, and walks away from the interview, right? So we get a little bit of a thing there. We know Moxley and Danielson have had their issues in the past, but have joined together. So, you know, I don't know, just speculating here, could we see MJF align, or William Regal align with MJF, and see the beginning of the end for the Blackpool Combat Club? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like that's where it's headed. I feel like that was the whole setup with the email thing, but, you know, I could be
because it's not going to end with Regal getting back in the ring. So people that want to speculate that, he's not going to wrestle.
No.
But, you know, could he be the Paul Heyman to MJF's Roman Reigns? We'll see.
Yeah. Well, mystery man, friend, and co-worker, you're behind the wheel of the car, so I don't want to distract you too much, but do you have any thoughts on what you saw the other night?
I thought it was a very interesting showcase. I've never seen anything to do with professional wrestling before in my life other than collegiate level. And I want to go back to the take that the esteemed Mr. Akers took about with what some people were saying with the injury that Hangman suffered. That was an interesting moment. That was an interesting moment because I swear not 5 minutes before that injury happened, I had asked, is there ever been something significantly serious, an injury that a wrestler suffered?
I forgot about that. That's fucked up.
Yeah. So we had touched on that right before, and then it happens, and it is that sitting and waiting and wondering, is this real? And it's kind of just wondering, is this part of it? What's happening? What do they do? And like you said, Corey, they start not showing the ring anymore, and that makes you realize the severity of the situation. But Mr. Akers, he makes a significant and a very important point that anyone with those thoughts about, hey, he deserves it, this is karma for what he might have done in the past. That's just something that someone has that kind of take across any kind of sports platform, which is always a ridiculously stupid take to have because it's not karma, it's injuries that no matter what that person can do, they get injured. Yes, there are some things that people do, but it's a wild thing. But it was a very cool thing, I thought, and Corey, you made it very clear to me, it was disappointing what happened to Hangman, obviously for his health, but also because it was going to be a legitimate, awesome match. And it was a great start. I hadn't seen anything like that before. And Hangman comes out, and he's climbing up into the crowd, jumping down on top of all, and it's going berserk. And the referee's trying to do anything, and it's kind of like, that would have been me. I'm the referee trying to keep this all uniform. Why even try? Let him do his thing. He's jumping. He's doing what he wants to do. Hey, it's a show, and let him do his thing. It's an art form, and he's a performer. He knows what he wants to do.
Yeah, that was interesting perspective. Maybe at some point in the future we're traveling again and we can get a full show in. I thought this was going to be like pay-per-view quality show, and we were working hard. We didn't get to do what we wanted to do, but I appreciate your perspective on things.
Can I say one last thing about the match?
Sure.
We have got to get the fucking gigging on camera under control.
Yeah.
Why are we still? Why is Moxley cutting himself directly in front of the camera?
I saw a lot of shit talking on Twitter about that. And
Producer, director, you got to know that's coming. We have to get more communication on that. This is now. I can't even count the many of times that we've caught him just gigging himself.
I always somehow miss it, but I was actually paying attention during the commercial break, because I never pay attention during the commercial breaks, I'm going to be honest. But I was actually paying attention, and I stood up. I was like, I saw it. It was like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's fucking drinking a beer and pointing at the TV. That was me the other night. So
I mean, we got to have some more communication about where these spots are going to happen in the match, so they can get communicated to the truck, so that we can get a camera angle set up. We can cut away to a close up, away from the action. Like, it's just the camera's right there staring at him.
It's pretty rough.
He's leaned over, and there he goes to do it. Like, it's just. Oh boy!
Get that together. And we apologize for the lack of listener question or prompt of the week. We had a probably 10, 11, 12-hour day Tuesday. Well, we had a 12-hour day Tuesday, and yesterday was long as hell, so we just didn't even think about it. But we'll get back on track next week. You got final thoughts on anything else before we close it out?
No. Shout out to Bobby Matthews, his book, Living the Gimmick. We finished that up. We tweeted about it. Go check it out if you're a fan of Southern noir, Southern literature, and pro wrestling. And hopefully we will have him on the podcast soon. He said he'd be willing to come on, so it'd be cool to talk with him about his book, and it sort of deals with the territory days in wrestling, and so we'll talk some old school wrestling too, and hopefully the first of many guests we have coming up here in the near future. We're trying to get this thing going, trying to get it expanding.
Yeah, we've got a few people on the hook. We just got to get them lined up schedule wise, that I'm really, really excited about. So yeah, just keep listening. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We're at Alabama Slam Pod. Like Patrick mentioned, he linked the book the other day. Shout out there. And then follow the Alabama Take on Facebook. That's our main sort of site and central hub. But we got friends and colleagues that do a few other podcasts. There's Check Your Shelf Book Podcast, Taking It Down, Pop Culture Podcast, taking on sports, obviously a sports podcast. We are a Star Wars. It's a Star Wars podcast, obviously, that I do with a couple buddies of mine. And then This Song Sucks is coming back real soon, hopefully sooner rather than later. And then there's weekly essays. We got a few writers contributing weekly on different things, all kinds of things from books, music, pop culture, everything in between. Patrick got another big wrestling article he's working on.
It will come out by Monday. Scout's Honor, promise. I know I've said that before.
Scout's Honor.
Scout's Honor, it'll be out by Monday.
Well, yeah, y'all, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully we'll have some of those guests lined up pretty soon. And we'll talk to y'all next week, and roll tide anyway.
Rocky Top, you'll always be.
Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Thanks, y'all.